How about it? SoFi, James. We're heading to SoFi. Super Bowl 56. Are you kidding me? That's crazy stuff, man. It's crazy.
We're just over a week away from Super Bowl 56, and we had to bring on Dave Lapham to discuss all things Bengals ahead of their matchup against the Rams at SoFi Stadium. Hi again, everyone. I'm James Rapien with Cincinnati Bengals Talk, and Dave Lapham's joining us now. Make sure you check his podcast out, his YouTube channel out, so you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. It's the In the Trenches with Dave Lapham podcast. Dave, I know I listen every week. You have Lou Anarumo and Brian Callahan and a lot of great guests. So I'm so glad you've gotten in the podcasting game. You picked a hell of a season to do so. What's it been like to do that weekly?
Yeah, it really has been a lot of fun. And you're right. I mean, what a season to start something like that out. And it's kind of snowballed, caught a little bit of fire. We've had, like you said, coaches, players, other media people from around the country. Had Chris Collinsworth, Boomer Esiason, Phil Simms, Chris Sims. We've had a whole host of people, talking about Bengals football. And boy, it's what a season. I mean, you just can't. You could never expect it. I honestly thought, James, my best case scenario was they might win 9, maybe 10, perfect season and get a wild card. I wasn't sure 10 wins would win the division, but it ended up winning the division, and here they are, three playoff games later, 2 on the road. That's the amazing thing. Going on the road twice and winning the way they won to get to the Super Bowl is just almost indescribable.
It is. And that was one of my questions, and you answered it. How surprised are you by this run? And I admit I'm surprised too. I mean, there's no way I would have said 10-7. I could have seen. I think I wouldn't have said that would have won the division coming into the year. But not only did they go 10-7 and win the division, but then they win 3 straight playoff games and now have a shot at the franchise's first Super Bowl. It's insane. And I had your broadcast partner, Dan Hort, on last week, and I asked him this, and I want to ask you, how much fun are you having calling these games and having during this playoff run?
Oh, it's a lot of fun. I fortunately had experienced it before, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Back in 1988-89 season. And that was a great year. I mean, Bengals go 12-4, win the AFC, go to the Super Bowl in Miami and lose a heartbreaker, and of course played in one. And there's nothing like playing in one, even though Super Bowl 16, that day was the highest I've ever been in my entire life professionally. Marriage, birth of children, all of that is life experiences that you can't match. But professionally, getting to the Super Bowl, winning the AFC Championship, the high in that locker room, the adrenaline pump and all that is unmatchable. I mean, you can't do anything else from an occupation standpoint to have that kind of a rush. And then the same thing, the morning of the Super Bowl, I'm like, oh man, I can feel the adrenaline surge already. This is too early, and I remember sitting on a bench before with the other offensive linemen before we started doing warm-ups even. I'm like, oh, here's another one, oh, it's too soon. But then the game comes, the offense is introduced, and we're running down the tunnel of people, and you see that big TV lens, and you're like, oh man, this is going to be seen by a lot of people. Hope I play okay. The adrenaline felt like it could pick the stadium up, And then after the game, James, never felt anything. The death of a close relative puts you in a very low position in your life, obviously something like that. But losing that football game, the most important game in your life, and not only to lose, but the way we lost it, to self-destruct, not put our best foot forward, really never gotten over it. But that day, right after that football game, that was the lowest of lows. And I remember going back to the hotel and tucking my young son into bed. And he was old enough to know what was going on. And he looked at me. We were down 20-0 at the half, as you might recall, and end up rallying and lose 26-21. But he looked at me and he said, Dad, why'd you guys stink so bad in the first half? And I'm like, oh. I said, son, I can't talk about that now. I won't be able to talk about that for a while, but, why don't you go to sleep and maybe some point we'll be able to talk about it. That was devastating. It was crazy.
How long did it take you to be able to talk about it?
Oh, I mean, I had to talk about it, right away because, all my family came in from the East to go to the game in Detroit. And, I was with everybody after the game. We had a Super Bowl party as such. It was a gathering, and that was brutal. To go to that gathering knowing you lost that football game, but everybody obviously is rehashing a bunch of things, and you're dejectedly, part of that mix. But that was rough. I mean, it took me a while to be able to watch it again. I usually watch it right after. I couldn't watch that right after. I needed time to decompress and get over it a little bit. And then when I watched it, just opened all the wounds up again, man. They hadn't scarred enough, So, but that's why I hope this football team, I hope they win this thing, because, we were a number 1 seed in both Super Bowls, didn't go on the road, home field advantage, and then go to the Super Bowl. These guys go on the road and knock off the number 1 seed and beat the number 2 seed and beat the number 2 seed twice in the month of January. I mean, they beat the Chiefs twice in the month of January. That's unbelievable. And then they end up going to the Super Bowl as a result of it. So I just think the way they've come from behind in so many games, regular season and postseason, I just think they feel like, there's nothing they can't overcome. I really feel like their resilience is unmatched.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think that's rare for any team, but specifically a team like this where there's a lot of veterans on defense, but offense, it's a bunch of kids. I mean, first or second year players outside of, Joe Mixon and Tyler Boyd, all of their stars from their quarterback on down. And that's it's wild to me. And so I guess let's start there with the quarterback. What impresses you most about Joe Burrow? Because he's been in these moments and it just seems like he responds the right way. Anytime there's any type of struggle or any type of success, he just knows how to react in big moments.
Yeah, he hasn't earned confidence. There's no question about it. His latest comment is, we beat the second best team in the AFC twice, meaning the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, that's a big statement to make, and it's going to be that's going to go viral. There's no question about that. But it's earned. It's an earned confidence, and I think Joe's football IQ and his ability to diagnose, his ability to consume mass quantities of information, whether it be off tape, whether it be coaches' presentations, and have total recall of it. And then during the course of the game, when a problem arises, be able to sort through and pick out what he needs to solve it in a very, very rapid fashion, separates him, puts him in a category with Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, those kind of guys. His mind, his football mind is Mensa. I mean, it's genius. There's no two ways about it. So that's a factor. The other factor is toughness, mental and physical toughness to come back from the ACL, MCL as quickly as he did. That showed the mental and physical toughness. And then as we saw James early in training camp, he had a little claustrophobia with people around him, with that knee. And he said that the knee really wasn't right until the bye week when he could put a little extra time into the rehab. And then he's taken off because now he has confidence in that knee and he's doing everything that he did before the knee injury. And you don't even realize that he's got a knee injury. And then, to get sacked 9 times and 11, really 2 didn't count because of a timeout and a penalty. But and to not complain about it to any of the teammates, just get up. If it was a third down, he'd go to the sideline, sit down, take his computer and put on his headset, and coach says, what do we need to do the next series to get better? That one's over with. That plays big time with teammates. I mean, that whole thing permeates not just the offensive line, the entire offense, the defense, special teams, everybody. So his mental and physical toughness, he just doesn't flinch. I mean, I've seen quarterbacks when they get hit like Joe, they sack themselves. They go to the ground, assume the fetal position before even getting hit. There's none of that stuff with him. And then finally, and most importantly, you got to be able to play. Mm-hmm. And, all that stuff's great, but if you can't complete a ball or make play, it doesn't matter. This dude can play at the highest level. I mean, his accuracy, his ability to put the right touch on the football at the exact moment to get it into small windows, portholes, is unbelievable. It really is. And so he's special with a capital S. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah, he certainly is. And we've seen that playmaking ability. I mean, I think I saw it was a 42% pressure rate against the Chiefs, and he was only sacked once. And we saw some big runs. I know he ran for 4 first downs. He found Jamar Chase for that 22-yarder where he escaped on the one side and made it to the other side and found him. I know he scrambled and hit Higgins on the run. I mean, he's a playmaker. And I kind of think that's this team's path if they're going to continue, because I look at the Rams and it's Aaron Donald and it's Von Miller, and we could go on and on. I mean, they have some depth there. How do you think this offensive line and really this offense attacks or tries to keep at bay those horses, those stars on the other side?
Yeah, I mean, I think the play that resonates with me in that Kansas City Chiefs game is Chris Jones has him, and he tries to tackle Joe Burrow high. Joe Burrow shucks him off, and then he dives at his feet. So he missed the sack high, missed the sack low, and Joe scrambles for a first down, right in front of the Chiefs bench. So that's the thing about Joe. He's I think, underappreciated athlete. I mean, his short space quickness, he makes guys miss all the time. And he's got better than average speed. I mean, he gets out there running. He's 4.6 or better. I mean, he can run. So I think his athleticism, the guy was an all-state point guard in high school. His best sport as a young athlete was baseball. He can do anything. He's an athlete. And in terms of attacking this defensive front, that's going to have to be an A-game standpoint. His mobility, his pocket manipulation, his making plays out of the pocket, all that's going to have to be at a high level because these guys are going to pressure the quarterback. I mean, during the course of the season, they I think it was 50 sacks, as I recall. I think they have 50 sacks on the year. Yeah, they did third most in the NFL. 50 sacks, only gave up 31. They had a plus 19 sack ratio. So they protected Stafford and they pressured the opposing quarterback. And Joe's going to have to, make some plays like that. But I think, honestly, I really believe they've got the best player in football in Aaron Donald. But I think the supporting cast up and down the line of scrimmage at Tennessee, I thought that group is a little bit better and a tick above this group. I think this group is good, but I think the Tennessee Titans group is maybe even a little bit better. Not much, but so they've had a dress rehearsal on the road against the Titans. It didn't go well, 9 sacks, but a lot of those were problems with communication. I mean, I remember one time the tackle lets the end go inside. He thinks it's a slide protection. The guards slide, no guard slide. So they're on different pages, free runner. That happened a couple of times. 2 of the sacks were like that. A couple of the sacks, nobody's open down the football field, get rid of the ball. The sacks, did the offensive line play well? No. But were all 9 sacks on them or all 11? No. I mean, everybody had their issues. I think a big deal is going to be Joe Mixon working against this linebacker. I'm telling you what, when Reader blitzes, when Reader blitzes in their package, he's a load. And running back blitz pickup stuff, P. Ryan or Joe, whoever it is going to have to be solid with it. The other thing is the Bengals had trouble against the Tennessee Titans with twists, ETs, end penetrate, tackle, loop, tackle, penetrate, end loop, tackles, loop inside, penetrate, and looper. They're going to have to tighten up the technique and pick up those twists because the Rams do an unbelievably good job of it. And, they've got multiple pass rushers, Von Miller, Aaron Donald. I mean, those 2 guys are the highlight guys. But they've got others. I mean, Floyd can get it done. The guy, though, in my opinion, that's kind of like the unsung hero, Greg Gaines. I've never seen him off the football field, the nose tackle. He stays in even, in nickel packages. And when they slide away from him to block Aaron Donald and Von Miller, man, he's a bull rush guy, hits that A-gap inside, and he can penetrate the pocket. So I'm telling you, up and down that line of scrimmage, the way they line up, I mean, they have a nose tackle and he's tilted. And then they have a 3 technique and Aaron Donald. It's basically a 5-man defensive line look, in my opinion, though. Von Miller, Leonard Floyd, Aaron Donald, Greg Gaines. And then they bring in this big dude, Robinson. When this big old beast, number 94, when he comes in the game with that 5-man look, this is a good defensive football team. I think at the line of scrimmage, that's where the Super Bowl is going to be won and lost, just like, basically every football game is. And will the Bengals will the Bengals be able to handle the Rams defensive front? And then will the Rams be able to handle the Bengals defensive front with the H-boys, with Hendrickson, Hubbard, doing what they're doing because they're making noise in the playoffs as well.
Yeah. And we could talk about the defense because it does I'm glad you brought up Tennessee because it feels like if I had to project the Bengals path to victory, it's not going to be 35-33. against the Rams. It might be more of a Tennessee game where it is, okay, we're going to have to punt here, but our defense is playing well. And yeah, they have some weapons, no doubt. Cooper Kupp is probably the best receiver in football this season, certainly statistically. But, I think that this Bengals defense had shown time and time again, and it's probably the biggest surprise of the year for me, how well they've played, but that they can win games. How do you view Rams offense, Bengals defense?
Well, I look at the most points they've given up is 24, in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. They held their first two opponents to under 20 points. They 17.5 point average, 35 points in the first two playoff games. I do think the Rams do have some weapons. They do have some explosiveness to them. They're a pass-first football team, obviously. Stafford's playing at an extremely high level, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. They've got, obviously, Cooper Kupp is a just unbelievably productive. Triple Crown winner, led the NFL in catches, yards, and touchdowns, and he's making the same kind of noise in the playoffs. And Odell Beckham Jr., OBJ to be like a complimentary piece. That's a damn good complimentary piece right there. So I mean, they've got some talent there. I think the Bengals, first and foremost. One more thing about them offensively, how they handle Tennessee. Get the ball out quickly, quick game, screens, draws. Got to be able to run it a little bit. You have to be able to mix that in there, but you don't want to be holding on to that football too long. And maybe if the Bengals can make the LA Rams do that, go to their quick game and not try to challenge down the football field like they've been successful doing against a bunch of teams. I think what the Bengals did in the second half, boy, their man coverage was suffocating, James. I mean, suffocating. And Sam Hubbard gets back-to-back sacks because they're coverage sacks. Mahomes doesn't know what he's looking at. He doesn't know where to go with the football. And ultimately, he blitzes from that linebacker position that Lou was in spying Mahomes. He's spying him and then decides, I'm coming downhill and getting after you, and ends up sacking him. That's all coverage stuff. Now, if the Bengals can, tweak that a little bit, make the same things look different and different things look the same, that's what you do. You don't junk stuff, but maybe the same type of thing they did last week, but do it differently, get to it differently from pre-snap and post-snap looks. That's going to be the chess match continues. And what kind of tweaks, what kind of adjustments to adjustments are going to be made. But it all starts with pressure on Stafford. If they can make Stafford uncomfortable, he'll turn it over. I mean, Stafford, during the regular season, Stafford had 17 interceptions, and he fumbled the ball 5 times and lost 2 of them. He had 19 turnovers, individually responsible for that number of turnovers. So it's not like he can't make mistakes. Now, he had 41 touchdown passes, so that's pretty extraordinary. But he will give you some opportunities, and when the opportunities present themselves, the Bengals have to take advantage, like they have in the playoffs. I mean, they've taken advantage. They've intercepted the football. They're +5 in the turnover department. They've been an opportunistic defensive football team, and that has to continue in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it certainly does. And it's I look back to the NFC title game, and I was still at Arrowhead when it was going on. And I forget the players. It was number 3 for the 49ers. Has the ball. Stafford throws up a lollipop. I mean, you or I could catch it during the interview, and it's right there, and there's green grass ahead of him, and he drops it, and the Rams go on to kick the go-ahead field goal. Those are the type of plays that this defense has made. I mean, Jesse Bates, say what you want about his regular season. I mean, the way he tipped that ball to Von Bell and the way he's played in the playoffs, and there's been a bunch of guys, but he's certainly playing at a really, really high level right now. And I think he'll make that play in the Super Bowl if given the chance.
Well, I agree. And I do think Stafford is one of those guys that's blessed with a howitzer hanging off his right shoulder. Mm-hmm. And guys that have that howitzer, Brett Favre, Aaron, they will make them. Not Aaron Rodgers doesn't. Aaron Rodgers is the only howitzer guy that has this part of the game solved as well. He won't take chances, but some of these gunslinger howitzer arm guys, like a Brett Favre, will say, I can make that throw. Yeah, it's a tight window, but man, I can make that throw. And they'll give you a chance. And the thing is, when they take a chance, you got to make them pay. You can't let them off the hook. Like you said, you can't, something that's right there for you, you can't bobble it and mess it up and let it fall to the ground. You got to capitalize and make them pay. The bigger the game, the more this is true. More games, are won by the team that makes fewer mistakes than the team that makes big plays. Both teams are going to make big plays. Guys are paid a lot of money to make big plays. Which team is going to make the fewest mistakes? And that's the team that's going to win the football game, whether that be turnovers, whether it be penalties, whether it be assignment errors, brain cramping on your responsibilities. The team that makes the fewest number of those wins this football game. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And speaking of winning, and Dave Lapham is joining us. Make sure you check out In the Trenches with Dave Lapham. Have you allowed yourself, Dave, to think about the feeling? What will be going through your mind if they do get it done in Super Bowl 56?
I think the first thing that came to mind, after they won the AFC championship, and to see Mike Brown on the podium at 86 years old and think, man, what's he thinking? At 86 years old, to have this unfold again, where, for the third time, they've been able to win an AFC championship. This one has to be so sweet, because at that stage of life, to experience this has to be unbelievably mind-blowing for Mike Brown. So I think the first thing I think about is, man, that's incredibly sweet. I know first thing Mike probably would be thinking about would be his dad, Paul. So that would have, I'd like to be in Mike's head a little bit, to get his thoughts, his first thoughts, if the Bengals can pull that off. But yeah, it would be, you talk about a story that's a made-for-TV movie. There's going to be books written. Everybody's rights fees. Everybody's going to be, scrambling for rights fees, because this has never happened before. A team 2 years ago that was 2-14, and they won 4 games and tied one the following year, 6-25-1 in a 2-year stretch. If they win the Super Bowl, that might be the greatest turnaround in the history of any sport at any level. I mean, really, not worst to first in your division, worst to first in the entire National Football League in a short time frame. That would be almost farcical. It'd be so crazy.
Yeah, it would. And they're one step away. And that's and I know I've kept you for a while. That's the last thing here. That's my mindset now. Like, I get it. They're underdogs and the odds makers and all that stuff. And they've been underdogs for a couple of weeks and all of those things. But and no one expected them to be here, including us. We admitted that. At the same time, now that they're here, if you just find a way for 60 minutes, and I know it's much harder than that, right? But if you push the right buttons and dial up unique things, and that's what I think is fun about this, because I think Zach Taylor, Brian Callahan, offensively, we saw it with Trent Taylor a little bit. There's going to be little wrinkles that you can add. We've seen Lou Anarumo all throughout the year use a bunch of different wrinkles on defense. That's the exciting thing to me, is if they put together that game plan, they can catch Sean McVay and those Rams off guard. And it just takes one game. It isn't a whole season or anything like that. They're just 60 minutes away.
Well, it's interesting because Sean McVay, obviously Zach Taylor's a branch from the Sean McVay coaching tree. Mm-hmm. And I'll guarantee you that both of those guys have gadget plays, trick plays that they've had in their back pocket the entire season. No reason to hold on to them anymore. I mean, we saw OBJ throw a touchdown pass, or not a touchdown pass, but a pass that set up a short touchdown, a backward pass to him to the left sideline. He throws the ball down the field a good distance down the right sideline. Those are the kind of things you have to be alert for. Double reverse, triple pass, we used to call it. Double reverse, pitch it back to the quarterback, tight end down the middle of the football field. There's a bunch of plays, all kinds of plays, red zone gadget gimmick plays. Kansas City is so creative in the red zone. Maybe you look at some of that Kansas City red zone tape and take stuff that might apply to your personnel that you think would fit your personnel. I mean, no matter where it is in the football field. And in this era, and both these coaches are the new era coaches, young coaches, very aggressive, very creative. Fourth down is going to be probably the third down. I bet they go for it on fourth down a ton. I think fourth down is going to be a big, big factor in this football game. When do you go for it? And then, when you have a kicker like Evan McPherson, it has a huge trickle-down effect on fourth down. When do you go for it? When you don't? Field position. Defensively, do I have to knock them back? Offensively, I can run it because we're already in field goal range. And we got 4 downs to do it, not just 3. I mean, all of that stuff becomes a big deal. But, man, if you got something in your back pocket that you think might be a little bit of a surprise element, no reason to hold on to it now. I'm not saying that every snap of the game should be, backyard football. Let's draw it up in the stand, do this, this, and this. I'm not saying that. but I'm saying when you've got something set up, and that's the interesting part of it, because usually gadget plays work when you've done something that looks a lot like the gadget play. You know, it's built onto that play that you've run against them, and they think that's what they're seeing. But then same things look different things look the same again, and to do it at the most maybe unconventional time, the element of surprise is the biggest deal to success in gadget play. So, man, I'm excited for all that stuff to unfold and what might transpire during the course of the Super Bowl. My head's going to be racing, man. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be fun.
You describing that, I'm just thinking of Tyler Boyd to Jamar Chase or Tyler Boyd to T. Higgins in some kind of throw when you mentioned Odell. So you never know.
I'm certain. Quarterback. Played high school quarterback. Yeah.
So, it's certainly going to be fun. And I know you're busy. So, Dave, I really appreciate the time. If you want to hear more Dave Lapham, and why wouldn't you, make sure you check out In the Trenches with Dave Lapham. Dave, as always, appreciate the time, and I will see you. Probably next time I'll see you in person, it probably won't be in Cincinnati. It'll be in Los Angeles, which is a beautiful sight, beautiful feeling.
Yeah, there's no doubt. How about it? SoFi, James. We're heading to SoFi. Super Bowl 56. Are you kidding me? It's crazy stuff, man. It's crazy.
It is. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you, James. Thanks for the opportunity, man.